summer birds. Rachel Torres, 28 years old, sat motionless on a weathered bench near the fountain. Her athletic gear was pristine, team hoodies zipped halfway, sneakers spotless, but her shoulders slumped with a heaviness that no amount of training could hide. The funeral had ended just hours earlier. A short, stiff affair, no tears, just teammates murmuring condolences and a mahogany casket lowered into the ground. Her father had died the way he had lived, distant, formal, and proud. Rachel hadn't cried. She didn't know how. Now she stared blankly at the ducks gliding across the water, and clutched in his hands was what looked like a wallet, handmade from cardboard and glittery stickers. His eyes, wide and serious, met hers. He took a step closer and said carefully and clearly, "Hi, I have $50. I just need a mom for one day." Rachel blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. "What?" she asked, her voice low and rough from hours of silence. He held out the makeshift wallet. "I saved it. All of it. Tooth Fairy, birthdays, even some change I found under the couch." Rachel's brows furrowed. "Why do you need a mom?" The little boy hesitated, then sat down next to her on the bench like they were old friends. He opened the cardboard wallet and began counting out wrinkled bills and coins with great care. His voice trembled slightly. "Because the kids at the playground said I don't have one," he explained. "They always say it. Liam doesn't have a mom. He's the weird one." He glanced up at her. "But I figured if I have $50, maybe someone like you could help me pretend just for today, like in the ads on TV, you know. The mom holds your hand, buys you ice cream, pushes you on the swing." Rachel didn't know what to say. She looked at his small hands, his earnest expression, and suddenly felt something twist in her chest. For a moment, she saw herself years ago watching other kids with their mothers, wondering what it would be like to be chosen. Just once. She swallowed hard. "You don't have to pay me," she said finally, gently closing his cardboard wallet. Liam's face lit up. "Really? You'll be my mom for today?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, okay, just for today." He leapt off the bench and grabbed her hand. "First thing, ice cream." The two of them walked to the nearby cart. Rachel bought him a vanilla cone with sprinkles and got a water for herself. Liam chattered the whole time about his dog named Buddy, his favorite action figure named Captain Thunder, and how he wanted to be a football player. Then they went to the playground. Rachel pushed him on the swing, caught him at the bottom of the slide, even helped him climb the jungle gym. He giggled, called her mom every few minutes just to try it out, and each time something in Rachel cracked a little more open. She took a selfie with him on the merry-go-round. Liam insisted they take 3 more just in case one is blurry. By late afternoon, they sat under a tree, his head leaning on her arm. "I've never had this much fun," he said dreamily. "You're a good mom, even for one day." Rachel smiled, real and aching. "Thanks, kiddo." When the sun began to dip, Liam led her by the hand to the edge of the park, down a quiet street lined with small houses. He skipped ahead, then turned and pointed. "That's our house. I live there with my dad. He works a lot." Rachel nodded, heart sinking as she realized their time was ending. She followed him to the porch of a modest, weather-worn home with flower pots on the steps. The air was still as the front door creaked open. Daniel stood motionless on the porch, his hand gripping the frame, his heart suddenly racing. His eyes landed on Liam first, sun-kissed cheeks, messy curls bouncing, a smile too wide for a regular day. Then, his gaze shifted to the woman standing beside his son, a stranger wearing athletic gear, holding his child's hand. Daniel's breath caught. "Liam," he called, his voice tight. "Who is this?" The little boy bounded up the steps, beaming. "Daddy, this is my mom." "Just for today." Daniel's eyes widened. "Your what?" Liam held up his cardboard wallet proudly. "I paid her $50. I saved it all. I found a real mom, Daddy, like I said I would." Daniel's mouth went dry. The woman stepped forward, awkward but sincere. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen the way it did. He just came up to me at the park. He offered me $50 and, well, I couldn't say no. I didn't take his money, I promise." She reached into her pocket, pulled out a business card, and offered it to Daniel with a nervous glance. "Yeah, my name is Rachel Torres. I play for the city's NFL team. I didn't. I swear I only wanted him to be safe and happy, that's all." Daniel took the card, but didn't look at it. His hands were trembling. Rachel stepped back. "I'll go now. I'm sorry again." And just like that, she turned and walked down the porch steps, disappearing into the fading daylight. Daniel stood there for a moment, frozen. Liam tugged at his sleeve. "She pushed me on the swings, bought me ice cream. She even took pictures with me. Want to see?" Still silent, Daniel followed his son inside. The house was dim, quiet, a small living room with second-hand furniture and crayon marks on the walls. Liam skipped to the coffee table, grabbed his dad's phone already open to the photo gallery. There they were, selfies of Liam on Rachel's shoulders, laughing on the merry-go-round, clutching her hand as they shared ice cream. His smile in those pictures, it wasn't just joy, it was belonging. Daniel sank onto the couch. $50? He whispered. Liam nodded proudly. "I saved it all by myself since last Halloween. Remember when I asked if Santa could bring me a mom? But Santa didn't, so I thought maybe I could find one on my own." Daniel pressed a hand to his mouth. He had worked so hard to give Liam everything. Every meal, every birthday balloon, every second he had left after long shifts at the construction site. But there were things he couldn't provide, things he didn't know his son was still longing for, and that hurt more than anything. That night, after dinner and bath time, Daniel tucked Liam into bed. The little boy curled up with his favorite stuffed animal, and the phone clutched tight in his arms, still showing the smiling picture. "Good night, Daddy," he mumbled. "Good night, Mommy, even if just for today." Daniel sat beside him, gently brushing a curl from Liam's forehead. He didn't respond. Later, alone in the quiet kitchen, Daniel picked up the business card from the table. Rachel Torres, NFL player, City Stadium, direct line, a phone number. Strength, dedication, purpose. He stared at it for a long time. Then, unable to help himself, he pulled out his phone again and looked at the photo. Liam's face was pressed against Rachel's shoulder mid-laugh. Her expression wasn't stiff. It wasn't polite. It was real. Something stirred in Daniel's chest, a mix of fear, gratitude, and an ache he hadn't felt in years. Not for himself, but for the little boy asleep in the next room who had saved $50 just to feel normal, just to feel wanted. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel let the tears fall. Rachel Torres sat in her apartment overlooking the city. The skyline was as sharp and polished as the world she had built, but none of it felt like it used to. Not after the funeral, and not after him, Liam. The sound of his tiny voice still echoed in her head. "I just need a mom for one day." It had been only a few days since the park, since the moment he pressed that cardboard wallet into her hand, eyes full of hope no 4-year-old should have to feel. She hadn't heard from him or his father since, but she couldn't stop seeing that face. Now, the playbooks on the table in front of her blurred, the training schedules, the team meetings, the championship goals, they all felt meaningless. She leaned back on her couch, closed her eyes, and that's when the memory returned. She was 7, standing outside the school gates, watching the other kids wave goodbye to their moms. Some were getting picked up with warm hugs, others holding their mother's hands. Rachel stood alone, adjusting her backpack straps, pretending not to care. Her mother had never shown up, not once. There were no bedtime stories, no coloring books, no afternoon walks. Her mom gave her protein shakes and taught her to win, but never taught her how to feel. Rachel had buried that version of herself. Until Liam. He reminded her of something she didn't realize she was still missing. Not the chance to be a mother, the chance to be someone's. She opened the drawer in her coffee table, pulled out the photo they'd taken on the merry-go-round. He had insisted on taking it. In it, Liam was grinning from ear to ear, his arms around her neck like they'd always belonged there. She hadn't faked the smile in that photo. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not supposed to forget this." A part of her still tried to reason. "You're busy. You've got a season to win. This isn't your responsibility." But another voice, quieter, deeper, rose beneath that. "You could have been that little boy, and maybe you were. And maybe you're still waiting for someone to come back for you, too." Rachel exhaled slowly and stood. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She didn't need to. Some things didn't require explanation. The next morning, Rachel stood again in front of the small house on a quiet street. The paint chipped, the wind chimes soft in the breeze. She hesitated, hand raised to knock, but the door opened before she could. Daniel stood there in his work uniform, clearly just about to leave. He blinked in surprise. "Rachel," she gave a sheepish smile. "I was in the area." He tilted his head slightly but didn't question her. Before either of them could say more, a voice from inside squealed. "Is that Mommy?" Liam came running out, his backpack barely zipped, his curls still damp from a rushed bath. "Daddy has work," he announced proudly. "Can she take me to school?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes darting between them. Rachel stepped in. "Only if that's okay with you." He hesitated again, then nodded. He'd love that. Rachel found herself crouching on the sidewalk, tying Liam's shoes. One lace was missing entirely, and she improvised with a knot. Then she brushed the curls from his face and straightened the tiny cap he wore. As they walked together toward the school, Liam squeezed her hand tighter. "Can you come inside today?" he asked. "Inside your classroom." She nodded. "My friend said I don't have a mommy, but if they see you, they'll know. You can smile. You don't even have to talk if it's weird." Rachel smiled gently. "You want me to be your mom at school?" He nodded. "Just until recess. Then you can go be NFL player again." At the gate, Liam turned and spotted his classmates. With the confidence only a child could have, he ran up to them and shouted, "This is my mom. She plays football. She fixes broken toys, and she knows how to make cupcakes." The kids stared. Then one boy whispered, "Cool." Liam beamed and waved goodbye to Rachel as he skipped into the classroom. Rachel stood frozen. Her heart felt like it had been rewired, like it had found a beat it forgot ever had. And as she raised a hand and waved back, she whispered to herself, "This is the first time someone's proud to call me Mom." And somehow that was everything. It started with a phone call. Daniel stared at the contact saved as Rachel Torres, his thumb hovering over the green button. He had typed and erased the message 3 times already. In the background, Liam bounced on the couch, clinging to his stuffed bear and chanting, "Cupcakes with Daddy and Mommy like a family." Daniel sighed, then pressed call. That afternoon, Rachel stood in front of their small house again, holding a grocery bag filled with cake mix and uncertainty. "I'm not great in the kitchen," she admitted as Daniel opened the door. He gave a soft smile, and as Daniel turned to check the oven, Liam flicked a spoonful of batter at Rachel. It landed on her cheek. She gasped. "Oh no." Chocolate attack. Daniel turned to see her swipe frosting from the bowl and dot it on Liam's nose. The kitchen exploded with laughter, and Daniel, so used to staying composed, laughed too. Not a polite chuckle, but a real laugh, the kind that shakes out of you when you stop holding back. He covered his mouth, but it didn't help. Watching Rachel, this elite athlete, trying to wipe frosting from her hoodie with a paper towel, it was just too much. Rachel looked at him then. No calculation, no defenses, just soft eyes and a crooked smile. For the first time in a very long while, she felt like she belonged. And somewhere in her mind, a voice tried to echo her mother's old mantra. Feelings are weakness. Don't get attached. But tonight, Rachel didn't want to listen. Later, after dinner, Daniel changed into a sweatshirt. The 3 of them settled in Liam's bedroom. Liam lay in the middle of the bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and dreams. Rachel sat on one side, Daniel on the other. A storybook opened in Rachel's lap. She read in a big, booming narrator voice. Daniel joined in with silly character voices, making Liam giggle and clap. Halfway through the story, Liam whispered, half asleep, "I wish Mommy wasn't just for one day." Rachel paused, the words hanging in the air. The only sound was the hum of the bedside lamp. Daniel tucked the blanket around Liam, brushing curls from his face. The little boy's hand still held the hem of Rachel's sleeve. Rachel stood to leave, but Daniel's voice stopped her. "You can stay a little while longer," he said gently. "He sleeps deeper when someone's close." So she sat back down, not as a guest, but as someone who'd been quietly welcomed into something fragile and real. Later, after Liam had drifted into a peaceful sleep, Daniel and Rachel stepped out onto the small porch. They each held mugs of warm tea as a breeze passed by. Neither spoke at first. The silence felt necessary. Then Rachel finally said, "When I was a kid, I used to wish my mom would draw with me or walk me into class, but all she ever taught me was how to win." She looked toward the street, then back at him. "Liam gave me a chance to do all the things I never got to do. Not as an athlete, not for anyone's approval, just as his mom." Daniel didn't reply right away. His eyes shimmered. A few minutes later, Rachel stepped quietly back into Liam's room. He stirred but didn't wake, still hugging his bear. She leaned down, brushed his hair from his face, and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere, kiddo. Not unless you want me to." It was supposed to be a normal Thursday. The sky was clear, the sun was gentle, and Daniel had the morning shift at the construction site. Rachel had offered to walk Liam to school again, something that had become quietly routine over the past few weeks. Liam wore his favorite blue shirt with the football buttons, and Rachel had packed his lunch herself, 2 jelly sandwiches with crusts cut off, a juice box, and a tiny note that simply read, "You're brave. I love you, Mom." He beamed when he found it and tucked it into his backpack like it was treasure. But that afternoon, everything shifted. Daniel had just arrived home when the phone rang. It was the school. Liam had been crying. He rushed over as fast as he could, only to find Rachel already there, crouched beside Liam on the bench outside the office. His little shoulders shook, face buried in his stuffed bear. "What happened?" Daniel asked, breathless. The teacher explained gently. Some of the children were teasing him, saying that his mom wasn't his real mom. Liam lifted his face, cheeks streaked with tears. "They said you're not my real mommy, that I made you up." Rachel's heart clenched. She looked into his eyes and asked softly, "Do you believe that?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Are you going to leave if I'm not good enough?" Rachel dropped to her knees right there on the sidewalk. She took his tiny hands into hers. "No," she said, voice firm but full of love. "I'm not going anywhere, Liam. But what if I cry too much or mess up or get in trouble?" She pulled him into her chest and hugged him tightly. "Even if you cry every day, even if you mess up 1,000 times, even if you yell or spill juice or forget to brush your teeth," she said with a smile he couldn't see, "I'm still your mom. Because being your mom isn't about being perfect." She pulled back just enough to look at him. "It's about staying. And I'm staying forever, if you'll let me." Liam nodded slowly, then launched himself back into her arms. From a short distance, Daniel stood on the second-floor walkway of the school, watching. He had just arrived and hadn't wanted to interrupt. He saw the way Liam clung to Rachel, the way she held him, the way she spoke to him like he was the most important person in the world, and something inside him began to shift. All these years he had taught himself to be cautious, to do it alone, to expect disappointment, and be grateful for survival. But now, watching Rachel kneel beside his son, the thought came uninvited, but undeniable. Maybe this time it's real. Later that evening after dinner, Liam sat in Rachel's lap drawing hearts with crayons on an old notepad. He looked up and asked, "Mommy?" She glanced down. "Yeah, sweetheart. I don't want a perfect mommy. I just want you." Rachel blinked hard. The lump in her throat, parents and excited children. Paper streamers hung across the ceiling, hand-drawn posters colored in crayon lined the walls, and little wooden chairs were arranged in rows. It was Family Day at Ridgewood Preschool, a day meant to celebrate love, connection, and belonging. Liam sat in the front row, his shirt neatly pressed, a small cap on his dark curls. He clutched a folded piece of paper tightly in his hands, legs swinging nervously beneath the chair. Daniel sat beside him, heart pounding, and just behind them, Rachel adjusted her hoodie for the 5th time, not because it was crooked, but because she needed something to do with her hands. The principal stepped up to the small podium, smiling warmly. "Today, one of our students has something special to share, a little story from a big heart." Liam stood up slowly, climbed the 2 small steps to the stage, and approached the microphone. It looked almost too big for him, but he didn't flinch. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded his note, then looked out at the sea of faces. He took a breath, then began. "When I started school, I didn't have a mommy." Some parents shifted in their seats. A few children looked at each other, curious. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Rachel sat frozen, breath held. Liam smiled softly. "But when I met Rachel, I didn't get one day." I got someone who tied my shoes and made cupcakes and walked me to school even when it rained. He turned, locking eyes with Rachel. She was already standing. I thought I bought a mom with $50, he said. But really, I found a family. There was silence in the room. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind where everyone knows they've just witnessed something bigger than themselves. Then applause. Soft at first, then growing until the entire room was clapping. But Liam didn't seem to hear it. He was looking only at Rachel. She walked slowly to the stage, stepped beside him, and knelt down to his level. She wrapped her arms around him, whispering something only he could hear. He nodded, smiling through the tears that had finally come. Then she turned to the crowd, standing tall, her voice clear. "This little boy didn't buy a mom," she said. "He gave me the one thing money could never buy. A second chance, a purpose, a place." She looked at Daniel and her voice softened. "He didn't just teach me how to be a mother. He reminded me how to be human." The room was silent again, but this time, it wasn't out of surprise. It was reverence. And somewhere in the back row, a teacher whispered to another, "That woman didn't just show up. She stayed." Liam reached up and grabbed Rachel's hand. She squeezed back. He had come with $50 and a dream. What he found was more than he could have imagined, and so had she. The apartment had never been truly quiet, not in the word family, scribbled in uneven block letters, rested on the coffee table. Rachel looked down at him, brushing a curl from his forehead. He sighed softly in his sleep, the kind of sigh that said, "I'm safe." Daniel stepped out from the kitchen, drying his hands on a dish towel. He caught the scene and paused, heart tightening at the sight. "He used to fall asleep waiting for someone to come home," Daniel said quietly. Rachel looked up, eyes soft. "And now he falls asleep knowing someone already has." They didn't say much else for a while. Words weren't always necessary between them now. The silences had grown comfortable, filled with understanding. After tucking Liam into bed, Rachel found Daniel standing by the small window, staring out at the night. The glow from the street lamp cast a warm outline around him. She approached slowly. "I've been thinking," she began carefully. "This little apartment, it's cozy, but it doesn't have a backyard for cupcake disasters or space for bedtime forts." He turned toward her, waiting. Rachel took a breath. "I have a place. It's a house not far from here, big enough for a garden, an actual dining table, a blue room if he wants it." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "I'm not asking as a girlfriend," she said quickly. "I'm asking as someone who wakes up every morning thinking about how quiet my life used to be and how I don't want to go back to that. Not after hearing his laugh in the mornings, not after hearing your voice in the kitchen." He folded his arms. "Are you sure this isn't just gratitude or guilt?" "I'm sure," she said simply. "I don't want to help you. I want to build with you because the truth is, I don't know how to do life without you two anymore." Daniel didn't answer right away. He walked over to the coffee table and picked up Liam's drawing. The stick figures grinned up at him. A child's fantasy, maybe. But maybe not. He looked back at Rachel. "What does the blue room look like?" She smiled. "Has a skylight and enough space for a stuffed bear collection?" Daniel laughed. "He has 3. Then we're already behind on shelves." The move happened quietly without grand gestures, just boxes and second-hand furniture, and a little boy who couldn't stop skipping from room to room. Liam planted sunflowers in the backyard with Rachel. Daniel cooked dinner while humming to old records Rachel didn't recognize, but secretly recorded on her phone to learn. Mornings became pancake rituals. Evenings were filled with storybooks and soft lullabies. Rachel, once a woman of discipline and structure, now knew how to build a fort and sing off-key without shame. Some nights, Daniel would find her asleep on the couch with Liam sprawled on her chest, both covered in crayon marks and cookie crumbs, and he'd smile because this wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. One night, while watering the garden, Daniel looked at Rachel and said, "I didn't say yes for you, you know." She tilted her head. He smiled gently. "I said yes because of him. Because the smile he wears around you, it's the one I used to dream he'd have one day." Rachel didn't respond right away. She just took his hand and held it. Family wasn't always made by blood. Sometimes it was made by choice, by staying, by showing up, by being exactly who someone needs you to be every single day. And in this little home, with crayons on the table, pancakes on the stove, and love in the silence. They were becoming a family. The afternoon sun poured golden light over the little garden behind their new home. The grass was soft, the breeze gentle, and the sound of laughter carried through the warm air like music. Liam ran across the lawn with a paper crown tilted on his head, arms full of daisies he had just picked. A small checkered blanket was spread under the oak tree where Rachel and Daniel sat with lemonade and a basket of cupcakes they'd baked that morning together. It was their first family picnic. Not fancy, not perfect, but real. Liam ran up, cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling. "I have something for you," he said, and reached into his backpack. He pulled out a folded piece of paper carefully colored in crayon. On the front a heart and the words, "To my mommy." Daniel raised an eyebrow. Rachel sat up straighter. Liam handed it to Rachel with both hands. "Open it," he whispered, suddenly shy. She unfolded it slowly. Inside, written in blocky, uneven letters, "Dear Mommy, I don't need to hire a mommy anymore. I just want you forever." Rachel froze, her breath caught, her eyes blurred. "I saved that money for so long," Liam said quietly, "but now I don't need it. I already have you." Rachel looked at him, then at Daniel, and without another word, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. Daniel's breath hitched. She stood, took a deep breath, and looked him in the eyes. "I know I can't replace anyone," she said. "I know I came into your lives by accident because of a little boy with too much hope and $50 in a cardboard wallet." She knelt on one knee, not just because of the tradition, but because of the weight of the moment. "But if you'll let me," she continued, "I want to be your family. Not for a day, not for a while, but for as long as you'll have me." Daniel covered his mouth with one hand. The other reached out to her, trembling. "I was never waiting for perfect," he whispered through tears. "I was just waiting for real." He nodded. "Yes," he said. "Yes, Rachel." She slipped the ring onto his finger as Liam squealed in delight, spinning in circles. Then he threw himself between them, wrapping his little arms around both their waists. "I have a mommy now," he cried, "not just for one day." They laughed, holding each other close. 3 hearts no longer broken but whole. Hand in hand they walked toward the garden gate. The sun cast their shadows in front of them. 3 shapes stretched long and warm, moving together. A new chapter, a new beginning, a new promise. And somewhere in the breeze, if you listened closely, you could almost hear the echo of a little boy's first brave words. Only this time, it wasn't a question. It was an answer forever.